Hey folks, I thought we would spend a little bit of time this morning with some honest history to talk about, an honest 250th, right? The 250th anniversary of the American Revolution and the War for Independence, and the events that actually mattered that can help us understand a little bit more about what it was and what it wasn't. And today was an event that is one of those moments: the passage of two of what is known, what have become known through patriot historians as the Intolerable Acts or the Coercive Acts, which in fact do lead to the War for Independence. Two of them were passed this day. Two of the most important ones, the Massachusetts Government Act and the Administration of Justice Act, were both passed in Parliament on May 20th, 1774. Now, of course, the for those of you, I'm sure you know, that the Intolerable Acts are a collection of bills that were passed in over a long period of time between March and June or July 1774, depending upon whether you include the Quebec Act in that, that are passed by Parliament in response to the Boston Tea Party. If you really want to get an understanding of the American Revolution, particularly of the War for Independence, then it all really has to start with the Tea Party. And more to the point, it has to start with the British Parliament's reaction to the Tea Party. The Tea Party is itself a reaction to the Tea Act, which is passed in May. Tea Act the Tea Act is a nothing burger of a bill, right? The East India Company has all kinds for mismanagement reasons, but has all kinds of tea just moldering in warehouses in London. There are all kinds of investors in the East India Company, including a number of Americans, who want to make sure that tea gets sold. And the British government wants to make sure that it's continuing to collect a duty on tea that is being traded, and not doing it very much good to have it sitting there wasting away in these warehouses. So to save the East India Company, it passes the Tea Act, which does a number of things. But one of the things that it does is that it lowers the duty on it, but it increases its enforcement. But by lowering the duty on it, it lowers the price, and they believe that by lowering the price, it would make consumption of it shoot up with their target market, and their target market is colonial Americans who are drinking all kinds of tea. Well, what they didn't understand is what radical patriots, particularly in Boston, would see in it. In particular, those radical patriots who are making a lot of money off of smuggling Dutch tea into British North America at a rate which was really cheap, but with the price cuts that come with the restriction of the duties in the Tea Act, would have made that tea much more expensive. Would make the Indian tea that passes through England much more affordable, and that would cut into the smugglers' bottom line. So they can't have that. The East India Company sends ships to Charleston, to Philadelphia, to New York, and to Boston with tea on it. It is not landed in Philadelphia or New York. It's turned right back. It is landed in Charleston, but the tax isn't paid. But the duties are not paid. But in Massachusetts, which has had a long-standing set of problems with with British government and British authority, even though it is governed quite literally, Thomas Hutchinson is a Bostonian himself. That they want to use it as a mark that the people of Boston need to pay attention to Parliament. And so Hutchinson insists that it be landed. The radicals, such as Sam Adams and his smuggling buddy John Hancock, insist that it not be landed. And so the Boston Tea Party results in December 1773, in which a whole bunch of people dressed up as Mohawks in the middle of the night, no risk whatsoever. It wasn't like that they were facing British troops or anything. Go onto the ships, dump 352 casks of tea into Boston Harbor, clean everything up, and go away and get off scot-free. So when news of that reaches Parliament, or reaches the British government, Lord North, who was the Prime Minister, we could say, wants to go ahead and respond to this as a property crime. And so he turns to a Solicitor General and the Attorney General and says to them, okay, what can we do? This is a crime against property. Therefore, how do we prosecute this crime against property? The folks who are the Solicitor General and the Attorney General for the King say, we can't do anything. We don't have the authority to do anything. First of all, as a practical matter, it's going to be impossible to prosecute anybody there because we can't gather any evidence, so we can't identify any of the perpetrators. So there's that. But the second, the more important one, is that we don't have the constitutional authority to do that. We can't act against Boston. We can't act collectively against a group of people. We don't have the authority. The Crown doesn't have the authority to do that. To do that, you've got to go to Parliament for them to act. Lord North does not want Parliament to act because he knows that Parliament is going to blow this way out of proportion, is going to do dumb things, and so he does not want this problem solved by Parliament because Parliament will cause more problems. He wants it solved quietly, directly, through whatever kind of authority he can exercise through the executive, and that would using the police powers of the state. In this case, more modern kinds of police powers. How do you prosecute it as a crime? But no, the Attorney General and the Solicitors General say, no, the king does not have the authority to do this. Important point for us to keep in mind for what comes later. So what does Parliament do? Parliament does dumb things. One of the great miscalculations of British and American history, which is they get pissed off and they pass the Boston Port Bill. In March of 1774, they close Boston's port to all shipping until they pay for the tea. Now, that actually does not bother too many Americans. It doesn't bother Benjamin Franklin. It doesn't bother George Washington. Why? Because they're property guys. This was a destruction of property. They think the Bostonians are already troublemakers. The radicals are going too far. And they destroy property. Gah! What could be more precious than somebody's effing property? So they're kind of okay with the Boston Port Bill, even though people like Washington and others try to raise money to go ahead and pay the bill. But it also leads to this idea that they've got that radical leaders in each of the colonies need to be talking a little bit more about what this could mean. And so that results in the call for the First Continental Congress, which meets in September 1774. However, get to May and Parliament does more dumb things, and these are the dumbest things that they do. They pass two bills, the Massachusetts Government Act and the Administration of Justice Act. The Massachusetts Government Act is the measure that in fact brings common cause to all of the radical patriots and to pretty much all of the merchants too. But it enables people in Virginia to think that they've got something in common with Massachusetts, they've got something in common with Georgians, they've got something in common with Pennsylvanians and New Yorkers. You get the idea, which is it completely shuts down the Massachusetts government and essentially turns it over to the Crown. There are lots of moving parts in it, but it's not oversimplifying it to say that it rips the guts out of a government that had essentially been a local government of by and for the people of Massachusetts. That's something that actually makes people in other colonies stand up and take notice. It makes people like Washington stand up and take notice. So hold on. That is going way too far. If they can do it to the folks in Massachusetts, if Parliament can do this, so Parliament can do it to them, they can do it to anybody. And it feeds into a number of the conspiracy theories that have been perpetrated and perpetuated by patriots, radical patriots, for a long time that, oh my gosh, the British government is coming after your rights, wants to reduce you to a status of slaves through taxation and things like that. Well, this actually is Parliament doing what it is that they say that Parliament has been trying to do. They were wrong in the first place, but they're right in this one. Parliament, in fact, takes away Massachusetts' self-government. That is something that, as you might expect, these white, male, elite, minority, rural property lovers desperately want to hold on to. And so they see a common cause in that. That one thing really breaks down the barriers between somebody in Virginia and somebody in Massachusetts. It brings common cause to them, so they actually have something to talk about when they meet for the First Continental Congress of September 1774. And then when you get to the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Indictments that Thomas Jefferson lays out, half of the measures that Thomas Jefferson lays at the foot of George III, of the King of Great Britain, come out of the Intolerable Acts, come out of these 4 or 5 bills. It also includes the Quebec Act and a number of others, but the Quartering Act, all of these are part of the Intolerable Acts. This is what motivates the common cause of the American Revolution, and it is the Massachusetts Government Act that takes away the local government format of by and for Massachusetts that actually gives a sense of unity to the radical patriots. It doesn't bring everybody else in unity to them. This is not a unified thing, that they are not, to borrow a word from Dan McClellan, they are not univocal in this, but this shows that there is a common threat that it could happen to others if they go too far. Parliament doesn't have the authority to do that. That's today in 1774.